Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be doing an overview on the Live Letter 49, which came out of the European Fan Festival for Final Fantasy XIV. This honestly doesn't need to be that long of a video. They recap some of the stuff that's coming, showed us a little bit more, not too much we didn't already suspect and or know. They give us a little tour of Hydatos, for example, a little video of the Hidden Gorge PvP mode that's coming. They gave us a release date for the next update. And there's also a little surprise at the end, the 14-15 collab. But this is one of the easier live letters to digest. There's not really much to talk about until we're done with all the Fan Festival opening keynotes, and then there should be a lot more live letters in regards to expansion details, which is, I know, what people are really anticipating right about now. So, I mean, by the way, using the official Reddit Discord and their compilation of the information as my presentation. If you ever want to know where I get these kind of things, if you go to Reddit, you join their Discord, they have a Reddit Live for events like this. They have translations for live letters and stuff like that, and a ton of other different categories. So it's always something that you should look towards if you're ever trying to keep up to date on a lot of stuff, or you want to see Reddit's coverage on the various content for Final Fantasy XIV. So yeah, here was the schedule in regards to patch 4.5 and I guess the schedule going forward. The only thing they gave us an exact date for technically was patch 4.55, which is going to be February 12th, and that is, as it says here, going to have the Hidden Gorge, the second Rival Wings PvP map, and Eureka Hydatos, the final zone for the exploratory content for Eureka. Patch 4.56, which will contain the second part of the main scenario quest, which I am very heavily anticipating. That's going to be late March, and they specifically said that it would probably be right after the Japanese Fan Festival. I thought maybe they would do it the week before because, you know, they still need to skirt around details that means for the Japanese Fan Fest. Because they don't want to spoil people on part 2. But they did say it would probably be a few days after. So we're probably looking at, if March 23rd is the Japanese Fan Fest, that means, you know, March 26th, March 27th for the date for part 2 of the story. It's also going to contain the Even Further Hildebrand Adventures, which should have a Yojimbo trial. People at North America got to challenge the Yojimbo trial. People at Europe should now have had the opportunity to challenge it. And by that point, Japan would have had it as well. And finally, the Stormblood Beast Tribe quests. These are the allied Beast Tribe quests, where you can only do them upon getting max rank with all of these Stormblood Beast Tribes, and they come together for one final quest with a handful of rewards. They've been pretty enjoyable in the previous expansion, so as per usual, I am looking forward to that. That's what we're looking for. And then after patch 4.56, which is literally should be the last week of March, patch 4.57 will have the world visiting system, and then patch 4.58 various adjustments. Nothing in particular, and probably nothing major. Maybe unlocking the Savage Raids at that point, maybe nerfing a bunch of previous steps, more Hydatos nerfs, or more Eureka nerfs, I guess, in general at that point, to make sure people, you know, can stay caught up on all of it, or get it done before the expansion comes out, finish their glamour, finish the weapon, whatever. They showed off Hidden Gorge. It mostly works like Astrologos. It's the same rule set, you know, destroy the towers to destroy the base. You have all the different mechs, and collect ceruleum in order to actually activate the mechs. They did add a few new things, though. They added the ceruleum engines. This is a train that's going to run through, and if it actually hits a player, it will damage them and knock them back. However, if your team controls the station in the middle of the map, you can actually get items from it, which you can get keys that will allow you to activate stronger mechs. From the looks of the video they showed us, it looks like they're going to be adding like gob cannons as like a super minion in a sense. Based on this, yeah, which may include keys to powerful gob tanks, which we saw in the video, which looked like super minions for the things that go down the lanes, and ceruleum. It says and more. We don't know what the and more is, so we'll just have to wait. It suggested that maybe it could be respawns of Brute Justice mechs that you've lost, because they've said you will be able to get your Brute Justice mechs back, or there will be mechanics in place to allow you to re-obtain those. There's also Goblin Mercenaries, where upon defeating one of the Goblin Mercenaries, they will actually join the team that beats them. This is a PvE challenge on the map. If you've played League of Legends, you might be able to liken that to Baron, for example. Or if you've played Dota, Roche, I believe it is. I'm not too boned up on my Dota 2. On my Dota 2 terminology, so I always forget the name. I only watch it for the international. But basically, yeah, it's a PvE objective. You go and defeat it, and it joins your team. So that's going to be there. They showed us Lamebrick Strikebox is going to be making his third return for that. He is the boss from A10 way back when in the Alexander raid. As well as, what's the other one? And Pyros, yes, he's also in Eureka Pyros. So Lamebricks is going to be coming back for the third time. There wasn't really much to talk about that, and the video I don't have handy for you right now. They did show a video that was real quick. They had a bunch of technical difficulties with it as well. Yeah, they did come back to it eventually. I think this actually is the video right here. No, these are just images. Yeah, just a few images showing off some of the basic stuff. They had to come back to it a little bit later. But they did move on to Hydatos next, and Hydatos, just a few basic things. Finale of the Eureka series, the level cap will be 60 for elemental levels, and gear you've obtained in Pyros will be upgradable. Now, the weapon we knew would be upgradable, that was an obvious thing. However, the armor, they specifically said gear and weapons. So, based on what we kind of know about how the appearance of the Hydatos gear is going to turn out, it would appear that you would need the armor from Pyros to upgrade it in Hydatos. The only way to obtain that, all 50 Logos actions in the Pyro zones. So I would work under the assumption that you absolutely will need them for this. They didn't say it outright, but when they say gear and weapons, it implies you will need the armor from Pyros to update it in Hydatos. And that's how you can look like a shiny Christmas tree, according to them. And then on top of that, there will be new logograms and Logos actions introduced. There's not really much information outside of that. But yeah, we have to skip past all this other stuff to get back to it. But hopefully it's fun. The Logos system was probably the most fun thing about Pyros. I think it could have been a redeeming factor for Eureka throughout the entire expansion because it made progression a lot more up to your pace. I was able to solo a lot of stuff and solo a lot of progress in there by doing that. And then it was a lot more fun. It made Pyros a lot more fun. So I'm hoping it does the same for Hydatos as well. Now, he also toured around Hydatos a little bit. I gotta say, from a map design standpoint, it looks a whole lot more open. You know, he leaves the starting area and he just kind of starts walking through these giant open fields. And it's very welcome after the very constricted maps that we've had for the previous zones. I don't doubt that there's going to be portions of the map that kind of still function in that very narrow sense. But I really like the way that it looked and felt as he walked through the entire thing. He walks up to one of these devices, and that device seems to be shooting a laser towards the actual Hydatos public dungeon, and it's implied that you'll have to do something there, probably, in order to actually unlock the dungeon itself. He doesn't say it, but he says it looks like you'll have to do something here. Oh, and then he died and de-leveled, which was always a welcome sight. Then they talked a little bit about the Baldesian Arsenal, which is the open dungeon, as they're officially calling it in this, or the public dungeon, as they used to call it. And that is going to be the public dungeon, like I said, and it's going to be available for up to 56 adventurers at once. Now, 56 seems like a very unusual number, because that is the equivalent of 7 full parties. So 2 full alliances and 1 party left over. The thing about that is, considering one of the bosses in here is Absolute Virtue from Final Fantasy XI, 7 virtues, 7 parties, may have something to do with the conditions in which you can actually enter, or just some sort of symbolism in regards to the actual encounter inside of the public dungeon itself. Now, they say you are going to have several strict requirements met. You might have to have certain items, certain bosses beat, and of course you will need to have already seen the conclusion of the Eureka storyline in order to enter. They do show off Absolute Virtue. They confirm that it's Absolute Virtue. They had the crowd say, what was his name again? And people say Absolute Virtue. He's like, ah, there you go. Now, one of the big things that they've been talking about, they've been touting about how this is a very high level encounter. In fact, in the previous slide, it specifically says ultra high-end public instance dungeon, which is a very, very long term to describe this. We kind of learned why they consider it that, because in this slide, not only is it 56 people, it's 7 full parties, you're going to be fighting super powerful bosses, there's going to be traps laid out for you. You can't use resurrection magics in the Baldesian arsenal. When you die, goodbye. Now, that's not to say there won't be ways to resurrect in there. For all we know, there could be Carns of Resurrection, similar to Palace of the Dead. They could be the Logos raising actions may be effective in there, whereas traditional raising magics don't work. Maybe Phoenix Downs will work if you're no longer in combat. They didn't say that. All this says is resurrection magics will not work inside of there. Whether or not there's a caveat to that, we don't know. And I can tell you right now, I already don't trust 23 people in the 24-mans. Now I have 55 people debuffs, and I'm just as concerned. I've seen how people fight bosses in Eureka, and I have no trust. So when they say ultra high end and no resurrection magics, I think I can kind of correlate the two. So in other words, bring your potions, bring your cures, bring your defensive stuff, because you're going to die otherwise. It does say certain resurrective magics, so it does imply that certain ones do work. It's a question of which ones do work. So it may not be as debilitating as it sounds, but we're just going to have to wait to see. We'll know in less than 2 weeks. And then to clear the dungeon, adventurers will need wisdom, bravery, strength, perseverance, and trust in their companions, and a whole lot of time. So there's a lot of questions regarding this high-end, high party member thing. How much is it like emergency missions? How much is it going to be accepted? Or is it going to be completely abandoned like emergency missions? It's also worth mentioning, they didn't mention any sort of reward structure for it. We already know that the weapon portion of the upgrades does not need the public dungeon. You will not need to go in here in order to finish your Eureka weapon. There's nothing said about the armor, but there's nothing said about the rewards at all. And considering it's the end of the expansion, they may have just done this for sake of go have some fun, but without knowing anything for certain, it's hard to say. It is an arsenal, so it is possible. They did show a picture of a staff. You can see it right here, that's surrounded in this sort of chain. Are these arsenals part of the reward structure that's in there? Are we using them? Are they, fueling the enemies that are in there? It's tough to say, but let's just say this. You won't be forced into having 56 red mages in here, or 1 tank and 56 red mages, because your magics probably won't work. So no Verraise strats that are going to work through this. We really have to wait and see how that's going to work. And they do say that the traps will work like Deep Dungeon right here. So expect it to be similar transformative traps, exploding traps, stuff like that. So it almost sounds like a really high-end Palace of the Dead, with certain other restrictions that are going to be in there. They did say in previous iterations or previous live letters, you can use the new Logos actions are very powerful in there. They said that if you have the right Logos actions, you should, be able to do it with, not ease, but much easier than people who aren't prepared with the right Logos actions. So expect to kind of kit out what you bring Logos wise and be flexible with them in order to actually do those, especially the raised Logos, because we don't know whether or not those will work. Now, that was pretty much it for 4.5 stuff we already knew. But something I've been long anticipating, and I'll be doing a separate video on altogether, was their next talking point. I was really surprised to not see it in the opening keynote, but they've done our first teaser now for the 14 and 15 collaboration, something that has been anticipated for over 2 years now since Final Fantasy 15 first released back in 2016. It showcased a few scenes. Noctis shows up with his car, the Regalia. You see what's it called? You see images of what looks like him doing fates, facing Imperial soldiers, Final Fantasy 15-esque Magitech. And then most importantly, it shows Final Fantasy 15's Garuda, which was a key aspect of Final Fantasy 14's side of the collaboration with 15. The end reward in Final Fantasy 15 for completing the collaboration the first time through is the ability to summon Garuda as one of your summons in that game. And so in that time, Final Fantasy 15's Garuda says that they were awoken from a companion or from an adventurer from another world or from another realm. And it's implied that that's us. And that basically Noctis travels, awakens this Garuda in Final Fantasy 15 to then come back in an instant and defeat the Final Fantasy 14 Garuda, who is now in 15's universe. It's kind of weird to describe. There's not really much information about what contents are in there. There's the reward. It's been confirmed now that the Regalia, which you can see in its flying mode right here, will be the first 4-seater mount in Final Fantasy 14. It will be a reward from this quest. It is not a Mog Station purchase. And it will, of course, be on the ground and it will be able to fly. Kind of the basic details. We are thinking there's going to be a Kenny Crow minion as well. And it was a really cool trailer. Noctis looks a little weird in 14's engine, compared to 15, with the hyper rendered everything in 15. But it did also show them in a camping scene. It showed Noctis and the player using the Warp Strike action. Yes, the player using the Warp Strike action. So it's assumed that the instance against Garuda here is going to have a Warp Strike duty action, maybe for, overcoming large distances, or at times in Final Fantasy 15, you get a bonus for being far away. You do bonus damage with Warp Strike. So it could be, of course, correlated to that. Sometimes it could interrupt or break parts in Final Fantasy 15. So we'll have to see exactly how it turns out. But the bigger question is, what kind of trial is this Garuda? And we don't know. I'll be talking about it in a separate video, but The theory would be that it would be similar to Rathalos, a normal and an extreme. There's nothing to indicate that here yet. So what people are suspecting is that the normal mode, it will be you and Noctis, and that the extreme mode will be 4 players without a role, similar to Rathalos, and that'll be, similar. That'll be probably how you go about obtaining the regalia. We don't know. We don't know if it's a permanent collaboration, which I'd assume it would be. We don't know if it has any sort of 4-player trial tied to it. What's it called? And there's also all sorts of weapons and stuff that are in the trailer that's presumed you could get. You actually see Noctis using Astro Globes, Bard Bow, using a bunch of different Final Fantasy XIV weapons as his own weapons with 14's animations. And it was really cool. So you'd have to presume, I didn't get a good look at them, and again, we're going to be breaking that down in a separate video, but that those would be rewards as well, that there'd be a weapon for each job themed in Final Fantasy 15, which is a big deal, something that I honestly wanted for the Rathalos event as well, and I hope that's how it actually ends up working out in the 14-15 collab. The second half of, and by the way, it will be in mid-April, so after part 2 has already happened. That it looks to be the timing that they are aiming for. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty good collaboration. Hopefully it's a permanent one. Hopefully the instance is more fun than we're kind of anticipating. The 1-player one is not as enticing to me as a 4-player instance. I always want more 4-player content because it's something that's regularly ignored in Final Fantasy XIV in terms of more difficult challenges. So definitely hoping that it's going to be that. We'll be looking at that again separately. And it's also the first, I guess, non-mentor free multi-seater mount. I guess you could consider the Recruiter Friend, but somebody's paying money for Recruiter Friend. The second half of the live letter was more interesting than I gave it credit for when it was taking place. The costume designer Ayumi Name, she came back from her panel yesterday, and she did a Q&A. And the questions were all pretty much on point. They asked, about her job. They asked about certain challenges she's had to go through. They asked about let's see what else. They showed off 2 artifact pieces. I wonder if there's pictures of them here. Yeah, the Black Mage, sorry, I can't even blow that up. The Black Mage artifact armor for 5.0, which is, distinctly different between male and female, with the little dong hat that they've got there with the feather in it. And they also showed off the Astro piece, which we see Urianger wearing in the Shadowbringers trailer. Whereas this one, unlike the differences with the Black Mage, Astrologian are very similar between the genders. So you can expect similar appearances, assuming the veil, of course, would be for both genders, because I just think they're showing one with, one without. Same with the little eye patch here. I'm wondering if, both of them will have the eye patch. I have a feeling it's just so you can see what it looks like without the eye patch. Maybe it's a visor command. Who knows? Unfortunately, I'm not as into costume design as a lot of other people are. So again, Reddit Discord has all the Q&A written up here. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. You can see it's a lot of text for us to go through without a lot of pictures. So if you are interested in costume design, you're someone into that aspect of design in Final Fantasy XIV, highly recommend you check it out, because she had a lot of actually very well thought out and very interesting answers, even though I'm not super invested in the topic myself. They also then did a little announcement section, reminder that March 23rd is going to be the next fan festival. This is going to be a good time, because if it starts like 9-10 a.m. for Japan, it would be starting at like 5 p.m. over here on the West Coast for the fan fest. Europe, sorry, you guys aren't going to have a fun time with that timing. The Cloud Minion's now purchasable on the Mog Station for anyone who didn't attend the European Fan Festival. Also, they showed off the Ultima statue, which should be pre-orderable. I think it's pre-orderable right now, as a matter of fact. That was something people could pre-order for EU FanFest and purchase it from there as well. They showed off the detail of that. The board game, which they showed off, which is very simple Manderville-styled board game, the Gold Saucer Crackpot Party. People can purchase that at EU FanFest as it was, and that's going to be available online soon as well. The Chronicles of Light's going to be available. It's just compiling all the short stories that they've been posting every year for the anniversary, as well as adding 4 more stories to it. Art of the Revolution, Eastern Memories. So, I mean, that should kind of speak for itself. Art of the Revolution, it's Stormblood art book. Or a new Stormblood art book, I could say. Not the same one that you would maybe have gotten with the collector's edition. Piano Collections, another reminder about that. They're even going to do an unboxing / increased detail live stream on February 8th, showing off the collector's edition for Shadowbringers. That's going to be pre-purchasable on February 6th for anyone who missed that announcement as well. And that's it. They just kind of did a little bit of a wrap-up, and that was it for the live letter coming out of Final Fantasy XIV's EU Fan Festival. Expected kind of a light live letter, and we got pretty much what I expected. It's good to see the 14-15 collab, but just a handful of talking points and not really too much else. Just a few more expectations, waiting to see how Hydatos actually turns out. But anyway, that is going to be a wrap for our video here on the live letter from the EU Fan Fest. Thank you everyone on the Twitch chat for watching this live, and the YouTube channel. Thank you for checking out the video on the channel. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And keep an eye out because we've got quite a few videos coming out this week in regards to Final Fantasy XIV's Fan Festival's live letters. We have State of the Realm. I have confirmed who the guest will be for State of the Realm this week. Faros will be joining us. So anyone who's watching this live, you know it now. He'll be joining us for this week to talk about the events that just took place, and then that'll be posted this week as well. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to get back to my Twitch stream. We might do maybe another live recording, or we might move over to something else. I also have my own personal Q&A today. So thank you everyone for watching on the YouTube side. I will see you in the next video, and until then, take care.